Yes, we shall begin. Good afternoon. In the last lecture, we have seen the Werner's theory, wherein we have seen there are four salient features. I would like to recall those salient features for the today's study, because without knowing or without recalling those points, it is rather difficult to understand today's point. So according to Werner, he has given the salient features in the form of a theory. That is the first postulate that is given. He has every metallic element has two types of valencies, a primary valency and a secondary valency. Primary valency corresponds to the oxidation state. Secondary valency corresponds to the coordination number. Primary valency is satisfied always by negative ions. Secondary valencies are satisfied either by neutral molecules or by negative ions. We have seen certain examples while studying the applications of these Werner's theory, that in a cobalt complex where the chlorine has to play of satisfying the primary as well as the secondary valency. For this reason, we have shown a dotted and a thick line. In this regard, we also see that the primary valency which corresponds to the oxidation state are always shown by a dotted line, which are known as ionizable valencies, while the secondary valencies are always shown by a thick line, which are known as non-ionizable valencies. Again, we have studied the coordination number. The number of ligands which are directly bonded with the central metal atom is known as the coordination number or ligancy. For example, if silver ion having oxidation state +1, its ligancy or coordination number is 2. For copper, if it is oxidation state is 2 + 2, then coordination number is 4, exactly double. Or cobalt +3, oxidation state is +3, the coordination number is 6. So ligancy or coordination number is always double the oxidation state, or oxidation state is half the coordination number. Then we have studied another important terminology, that is what is a coordination sphere. For this, first of all, I would like to show you the diagram that we have already drawn, and you have to see this diagram very carefully, and this diagram will definitely help you for the understanding of today's aspect. We have studied the definition of a coordination sphere. What is this coordination sphere? Coordination sphere, for example, if I write a complex of cobalt amine Cl3, this is a hexamine cobalt +3 chloride. Here, this cobalt is a metal, ammonia are the ligands, this is the coordination number, and this entire portion, including metal, ligand, and the coordination number, is known as the coordination sphere, which is always written in a square bracket. This is a primary valency which is satisfied by negative ions, which corresponds to the oxidation state of cobalt, that is a +3. This is coordination number that corresponds to the secondary valency, that is equal to 6. So the primary valency is 3, while the secondary valency is 6. Primary valency is oxidation state, secondary valency is a coordination number. Now, what is the coordination sphere? The central place atom along with the surrounding ligands is known as a coordination sphere, which is always shown in a square bracket. So this entire portion is known as a coordination sphere. So based on this primary knowledge, we can move to the further aspect of this topic, that is known as IUPAC nomenclature. IUPAC nomenclature of these coordination complexes. We know lot of coordination complexes are produced everywhere in the universe. Now the question arises, how can we name all these complexes? So the name should be like that it should be universally accepted. It does not remain limited to a particular region. For example, for only India, the same coordination complex should be recognized by the same name throughout the world. Say for example, if we go in USA, this compound is named as hexamine cobalt 3 chloride. If we move to Australia, the same name is there. If we move to Japan, the same name is there. So the name should be chosen that it should be recognized or identified by the entire world by the same name. So for this reason, an internationally based committee was put forward, that is the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. So this council determines the name of any newly formed compound and that should be universally accepted. So they have put forward certain rules. So what are the rules? That is the IUPAC nomenclature. If you IUPAC nomenclature, what are the rules? So the proper naming of coordination complexes was possible only when after the advent of Werner's theory, as we know, because of which a very large number of coordination complexes which are with complicated structures have been found. It has been essential to develop a systematic and commonly acceptable method for naming these ligands. For this purpose, the first rule is that, say for example, we know if an inorganic salt is there, for example, NaCl or KCl, this is Na carries a positive charge, Cl carries a negative charge. K carries a positive charge, Cl carries a negative charge. So here, while naming such salts, we name the positive part first, followed by the negative part. That means this is known as a sodium chloride. That means positive part first, negative part second. Or this is a potassium chloride. So which rule we have followed here while naming the salts? Positive part is written first and negative part last. On similar rounds, the coordination compounds can also be named on similar rounds. That is a positive part that we have to write first. For example, CONH36, sorry, CONH34, SO4. Now we have to name this particular coordination complex. Here, this entire part is somewhat, even though ammonia are negatively charged species, sorry, neutral species, this is considered as a positive because SO4 is a negatively charged species. So while naming this, we can name this as like this, tetra, that is 4 ammonia molecules are there. So tetraamine cobalt 2 sulfate. So name of this is a tetraamine cobalt 2 sulfate. Or in place of this copper, cobalt in copper, if it is there, then we can write this as a tetraamine copper second sulfate. If manganese is there, tetraamine manganese 2 sulfate. So like that, we can start with the coordination sphere and then ends with the ionizable valency, that is the primary valency. So this is a first rule. While naming the ligands, positive part should be written first, followed by the negative part. Now, second rule is that neutral ligands are named as, when neutral ligands are there, for example, ammonia or water or ammonia, then those are end with O. Neutral ligands, those end with the letter O. That means this is a aquo, this is a amino. So these ligands, when are there, they should be end with O. So sometimes here, this is an exceptional rule that we have seen here, but majority times these neutral ligands that end with O. And here, the third rule that I would like to state here, that the names of negative ligands, when negative ligands are there, then the names of negative ligands in O and positive ligands in IUM. Positive ligands in IUM. For example, Negative ligands, for example, oxygen, if it is there, O2 minus, it ends with oxo. If cyanide ligand is there, it is named as a cyano. Fluorine, if it is there, it is named as a fluoro. So all these names that end with O when negative ligands are there. And if positive ligand, for example, NO2 plus is there, it is named as a nitronium. The name ends with IUM. Now, sometimes the coordination complex may contain a positive ligand, negative ligand, a neutral ligand. So there should be a systematic sequence by which we can name all these different types of ligand under one coordination complex. So the rule which states that when positive, negative, and neutral ligands are there, they can be named as negative ligand first, followed by neutral, and then positive ligands. So this is a sequence. Positive ligands named first, negative neutral ligands second, and positive ligands last. So negative, neutral, and positive. So how can we name such complexes? For example, CrH2O4 Cl2 Cl. So if such a type of complex is there, here this is a negative ligand, this is a neutral ligand, no positive ligands are there. So our rule states that negative ligand name should be named first. So two negative ligands are there. For two, the letter di is used, and chlorine is a negatively charged, so it becomes chloro. Then four water molecules are there, and for water molecule we can use the word aquo. So dichloro, four water molecules are there, hence it is a tetra aquo. Dichloro tetra aquo chromium, because chromium is a metal, and chromium 2 chloride. So this is how we can name this particular coordination complex, dichloro tetra aquo chromium 2 chloride. So this is how we can name this. Another example that I would like to give you here of platinum, PtNH3 4, then NO2 and ClSO4. Now here again we have to maintain the sequence. Negative ligands first, then neutral, and then positive part. So while naming this, we have to start with chlorine. So chloro, then nitro, chloro, nitro, four ammonia molecules are there, hence tetraamine, chloro, nitro, tetraamine, platinum, 4 sulfate. So this is the name of this resultant coordination complex. So we have followed that negative ligands named first, followed by neutral, then positive ligands. So the names, the fifth rule, the names, that is a di, tri, tetra are used to denote a monodentate ligand. That means which can form only single bonds, or when simple ligands are involved. For example, chlorine, fluorine, bromine, these are known as a simple ligands. So if two simple ligands are there, we have to use the letter di. If three ligands are there, we can use the letter tri, and if four simple ligands are there, we can use the word tetra. So these words are used when simple ligands are there, but when complex forming ligands are there, or when chelating type of ligands are there, then the letter di, tri, tetra may not be used. In place of di, we can use the word tri. We can use the word bis. For three ligands, complex forming ligands, we use tris. and for 4 it is tetrakis. So bis, tris, tetrakis, which are used for naming a complex forming ligands. So how can we name a particular ligand where a complex forming ligand is there? For example, if a complex COEN twice, Cl2, Cl, such type of complex if it is there, then how can we name this? As here two complex forming ligands are there. For later, for ligands 2, we can use the word bis here. So, and these are the simple ligands. For simple ligand, we can use the word di. So we can name this as a dichloro, and 2 ethylene diamine are there, and hence the letter bis is used for 2 ethylene diamine. So dichlorobis, ethylene diamine, dichlorobis, ethylene diamine, cobalt 3 chloride. The oxidation state should be written in a bracket to indicate that it is the oxidation state of the metal. So it is a dichlorobis, ethylene diamine, cobalt 3 chloride. So cobalt 3 means it is a oxidation state of cobalt in this case. Now, the next rule that we have to see, the next rule is that when in certain octahedral complexes, when the coordination sphere, the next is a when coordination sphere. What is the coordination sphere? The metal along with the total number of ligands which are always indicated in a square bracket. This is known as a coordination sphere. When this coordination sphere, or when the secondary valency, if it is satisfied by a negative ions, then the name of the metal ion ends with ATE. What is the meaning of this rule? When the secondary valency is satisfied by negative ions, majority times it is satisfied by positive ions, but if it is satisfied by a negative ions, then the name of the metal ion ends with 8. That means if cobalt is there, it ends with cobaltate. If iron is there, it ends with ferrate. If copper is there, it ends with cuprate. So the word ATE indicates that the secondary valence is satisfied by negative ions. For example, if I write a coordination complex like this, this is you're used in our laboratory. This is known as a potassium ferrocyanide. But the IUPAC name, if we want to write, then we can write this as a potassium hexa means 6 cyano. This is according to rule. When negative ion is there, that ends with O, and name of the ion, metal ion, that should end with ATE. So it ends with ferrate. So we are calling this as potassium cyanide, potassium ferrocyanide, but the IUPAC name of which is a potassium hexacyanoferrate. So ATE indicates that the secondary valency is satisfied by the negative ions. Another example that I would like to give you here, that is a K3CONO26. I think you are very well familiar with this. We have to start with potassium, and 6 nitro groups are there. So potassium hexanitro, potassium hexanitro. Cobalt is there, that ends with cobaltate. So this is a potassium hexanitro cobaltate. Name of the metal ion ends with ATE, indicates that the secondary valence is satisfied by a negative ion. Another example, that K4MO stands for molybdenum CN6. How can we name this? By following the rule: potassium hexacyano, molybdenum becomes molybdate. So molybdenum becomes molybdate because secondary valency is satisfied by negative ions. So if in certain cases, if the ligands, those can act as a bridge between two metals. If certain cases, if the ligands that act as a bridge between two metal ions, then those should be written by writing the Greek letter mu before writing the name of such bridging ligand. For example, this is ammonia, 4 molecules are there, cobalt is there as a metal, then this is a NH2, this is a NO2, this is NO2, again cobalt and NH3, 4, and this is outside the bracket, again NH3, 4. So the letter mu is used so as to indicate the bridging ligand. Bridging ligands are ammonia and NO2. So how can we name this bridging coordination complex? See here. First of all, we have to write mu amino. This is a mu amino. Mu stands for bridge. And again, one more bridge ligand is there, which is a nitro. So mu nitro. Mu amino, mu nitro. Eight ammonia molecules are there. So octaamine. 8 are there. Octaamine, metal atom is cobalt, and 3 nitrate. This is a NO3, cobalt 3 nitrate. So how we have written mu amino, mu nitro, then octaamine, cobalt, and 3 nitrate. This is a nitrate. So while naming the bridge ligands, we have to use the Greek letter mu. Then those ligands which are having more than one donor group, then such ligands are known as the ambidentate ligands. Ambidentate means more than one donor group is there or more than one donor atom is there. While naming such ligands, the point of attachment that should be written, point of attachment of the ligand. So point of attachment of the ligand that should be written, that indicates the attachment of this atom with metal. For example, here, if I write K4 CO NCS6, here to write the name of this, we can write this is a potassium hexa, that means 6. NCS means thiocyanate group, thiocyaneto, and potassium hexathiocyanato, and cobaltate 3. Here N stands for the point of attachment from the thiocyanato group. That means there is a linking between cobalt and nitrogen atom from thiocyanato group. Sometimes the point of attachment may be different. For example, K2 PT SCN6. So how can we write the name of this? Here the same is there, ligand is there, but the point of attachment is different. That means here we can write the potassium hexa. SCN means this is isothiocyanato S platinum or platinate 4. So here potassium hexa isothiocyanato S platinate 4. That means here S stands for there is a linking between platinum and sulfur from this ligand. So point of attachment of a ligand matters. So NCS is regarded as a ambidentate ligand which has nitrogen as well as the sulfur as a donor groups. Now, next is if geometrical ligands are there. If geometrical isomers are there, we can use the word cis and trans to denote the identical groups on same side and identical groups are on different sides, or identical groups are on opposite side. For example, if I write a complex of platinum like this, here the identical groups I have shown on same side, and here I have shown the identical groups which are placed diagonally. Now here, when the identical groups are on same side, we have to start the name with cis. So this is cis. Diamine stands for two ammonia molecules. Dichloro. Cis diamine dichloro platinum. Diamine dichloro platinum. Second, how can we name this? The name is almost same, but instead of using the word cis, as the identical groups are on opposite side, we can use the word trans. Remaining nomenclature is almost same. Trans diamine dichloro platinum second. So this is how we can show the geometrical, or we can give the names for the geometrical isomers in the form of either cis or trans. So this is how we can name a particular coordination complex by using these rules, and these rules are very easy. If you go through these rules, then it is very easy to understand. So I shall proceed with the next aspect of this topic, and then I shall stop because only 10 minutes are left. So I have to complete this part, which is very short, within 10 minutes. Now, the valence bond theory with respect to coordination number 4 and coordination number 6. According to this valence bond theory that is developed by Linus Pauling, you have to remember the name of this person. VBT was developed by Linus Pauling in the year 1931. So if your MCQ based question is there, you have to follow this name, that is the Linus Pauling, who is a responsible person for valence bond theory in the year 1931. It is the most widely used theory to study the different kinds of bonding which are present in coordination complexes, and to study the stereochemistry as well as the magnetic properties of these complexes. What is this theory, or what are the salient features or the main important points of this theory? The first, here I would like to take one simple example, is that CONH6 and Cl3. This is a hexammine cobalt 3 chloride. In this case, cobalt has to form in all 6 bonds with 6 ammonia molecules in an octahedral fashion. That means the coordination number is 6. So first salient feature is that the central place metal atom, this is central place metal atom, must make available, the central place metal atom must make available the number of empty orbitals equal to its coordination number. Here the coordination number is 6, so cobalt should have made available 6 vacant orbitals so as to form 6 bonds. So first postulate is that the central place metal atom must make available number of empty orbitals equal to its coordination number. The second salient feature is that when appropriate number of s, p and d orbitals, they mix up so as to form number of empty orbitals, number of empty orbitals equal to its coordination number. For example, if s and px and py orbitals are there, total number of orbitals are 3, then an equal number of orbitals are formed, that is a sp2. This is possible in case of BF3, where boron trifluoride, it has to produce 3 orbitals, or same is true for this complex also. So these orbitals, they mix so as to give equal number of hybridized orbitals. So if S, Px, Py and Pz is there, this hybridization is known as sp3. So here 3 orbitals have been produced, here 4 orbitals have been produced. If the S, Px, Py, Pz and dx square minus y square orbital is there, then total number of orbitals are 4. It undergoes sp3 dehybridization. For example, in case of PCl5 molecule, this sp3d type of hybridization is there. Or in certain cases, 2 d orbitals are there, dx square minus y square and dz square, under which this undergoes sp3d2 and sp3d3 hybridizations respectively. Now, this is how the number of orbitals, hybrid orbitals produced are just equal to the number of the coordination number of the central place metal atom. The third is that each ligand, as we know, must possess at least one lone pair of electron. Otherwise, the bond formation may not take place. So the third point is very important. Each ligand must contain at least one lone pair of electron. Fourth important salient feature is that it is assured that the metal atom is having empty orbitals and ligand is having filled orbitals because it contains lone pairs of electron. So the orbitals of metal must overlap appreciably with the orbitals of ligand, and then a bond formation takes place between the metal and ligand. So empty orbitals of metal should appreciably overlap with the filled orbitals of ligand so as to form the bond between the metal and ligand, that is known as a coordinate bond. Then fifth point is that due to hybridization, for example, sp2, sp3, sp3d or d2, d3, these coordination complexes have a perfect geometry. That means if it is a sp2 hybridization, then the geometry is a plain triangular geometry there. If it is a sp3 hybridization there, the geometry is regarded as a tetrahedral geometry, that is as in case of ammonia molecule, here boron trifluoride molecule. If sp3 dehybridization is there, then the type of hybridization is a trigonal bipyramidal, as in case of phosphorus pentachloride. The trigonal bipyramidal geometry, you have studied this at your BSc 1 level also. These are the 5 fluorine atoms, and this geometry is known as a trigonal bipyramidal geometry. Then similar words, that D2 octahedral geometry, and this is a pentagonal bipyramidal geometry, as in case of IF7, and this is observed in SF6, that is sulfur hexafluoride molecule. Then the sixth point, that is regarded with the magnetic property. If the orbitals of metal contains unpaired electrons, under such circumstances, the coordination complex is a paramagnetic. And if the orbitals of metal contains a double occupancy of electrons, or if it contains paired electrons, then the complex is known as a diamagnetic complex. For example, if the situation is like this is as in case of Mn+2, unpaired electrons is there, complex is paramagnetic. Or if double occupancy of electrons is there like this, then due to absence of unpaired electrons, this is a diamagnetic. So as per the definition of valence bond theory, this theory gives us the idea of the different magnetic properties which are exhibited by different coordination complexes. So only 1 minute has left, so I would like to